A single line of code. That's all it took to unleash the largest privacy disaster the digital world has ever seen. This is the story of the glitch that leaked 1 billion private messages, a cyber incident so vast and so sudden that it left governments, corporations, and ordinary people scrambling to understand how their most intimate conversations had been exposed. Just a quick note. Please subscribe to the channel to support what we do and help us keep uncovering these interesting stories. Now, let's dive in further. It began quietly, as most digital catastrophes do, with a routine update to a popular messaging platform used by hundreds of millions worldwide. The update, intended to improve encryption and streamline message delivery, contained a subtle flaw and overlooked logic error that would soon become infamous. For weeks, the vulnerability lay dormant, unnoticed by engineers and security teams alike, as billions of messages flowed through the platform's servers. Then, in the early hours of March 17, 2025, a group of independent security researchers stumbled upon an anomaly while analyzing network traffic. What they discovered was staggering. A misconfigured authentication check allowed anyone with basic technical skills to retrieve private messages from the platform's cloud storage. Within hours, hackers around the globe began exploiting the glitch, siphoning off messages at a rate never before seen in the history of the internet. By the time the company realized what was happening, the damage was already done. Over 1 billion private messages had been copied, archived, and distributed across dark web forums. The leak was unprecedented not only in scale but in the nature of the data exposed. Personal confessions, business negotiations, medical information, and even government communications were now in the wild. News of the breach broke worldwide, sparking panic among users who suddenly realized that their most sensitive conversations were no longer private. Journalists scrambled to verify the authenticity of the leaked messages, quickly confirming that the data was real and that the breach affected users in nearly every country. The platform's parent company, a tech giant with a market cap in the hundreds of billions, issued a terse statement acknowledging the breach and promising a full investigation. But the damage to public trust was immediate and profound, with users abandoning the service in droves and regulators demanding answers. Cybersecurity experts called the incident the mother of all breaches, comparing it to previous megaleaks but noting that this time, the content was far more personal and potentially damaging. As forensic teams pored over server logs and code repositories, it became clear that the glitch was introduced during a rushed deployment, bypassing several layers of quality assurance. Internal emails later leaked to the press revealed that engineers had warned of potential issues with the update, but their concerns were dismissed in the race to roll out new features. The company's CEO was summoned before congressional committees in the United States, the European Parliament, and other legislative bodies to explain how such a catastrophic failure could have occurred. Meanwhile, affected users began to report cases of blackmail, identity theft, and targeted harassment, all stemming from the exposure of their private communications. Law enforcement agencies worldwide launched investigations, but the sheer volume of data and the anonymity of the dark web made it nearly impossible to track down the perpetrators. Privacy advocates warned that the breach would have long-term consequences, eroding trust in digital communication and fueling calls for stricter regulation of tech companies. In the weeks that followed, cybersecurity firms detected a sharp rise in phishing attacks, as criminals used details from the leaked messages to craft convincing scams. Corporate executives, politicians, and celebrities found themselves at the center of media storms as their private conversations were dissected and published without consent. Some messages revealed embarrassing personal secrets. Others exposed sensitive business strategies or government plans, leading to resignations and diplomatic tensions. The incident quickly became a case study in how a single coding error overlooked in the pressure cooker environment of modern software development could cascade into a global crisis. Security researchers traced the origin of the glitch to a change in the platform's message synchronization protocol, which inadvertently bypassed user authentication for certain API calls. The flaw was so subtle that it had escaped detection during internal audits and even external penetration tests, highlighting the challenges of securing complex, distributed systems. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the breach was not the work of a sophisticated nation-state actor, but rather a loose coalition of hackers and data brokers exploiting a publicly accessible vulnerability. The sheer volume of data, over 1 billion messages, amounting to several terabytes, overwhelmed even the largest data analysis firms, who struggled to assess the full scope of the leak. For many, the breach was a wake-up call about the fragility of digital privacy in an era where personal data is routinely stored, synced, and backed up across multiple devices and servers. Regulators responded with unprecedented speed, launching coordinated investigations and threatening massive fines unless the company could demonstrate meaningful reforms. In the aftermath, the platform's user base plummeted, wiping billions off the company's valuation and triggering lawsuits from shareholders and customers alike. The breach also sparked a broader debate about the responsibilities of tech companies to safeguard user data and the adequacy of existing cybersecurity standards. Some critics argued that the relentless drive for innovation and growth had led companies to cut corners on security, prioritizing new features over rigorous testing. Others pointed to the complexity of modern software systems, noting that even the most well-resourced organizations can fall victim to subtle bugs with catastrophic consequences. The company responded by launching a sweeping overhaul of its security practices, including mandatory code reviews, expanded bug bounty programs, and a renewed commitment to transparency. But for many users, the damage was irreparable. Their trust had been shattered, and their most private thoughts were now part of the public record. The breach also had ripple effects across the tech industry, with rival platforms rushing to audit their own systems and reassure users that their data was safe. Insurance companies reported a surge in claims related to cyber extortion and identity theft, as individuals and businesses grappled with the fallout from the leak. In the months that followed, several high-profile lawsuits were filed against the company, alleging negligence and seeking damages for emotional distress and financial losses. The breach also reignited calls for stronger data protection laws, with lawmakers proposing new regulations to hold tech companies accountable for security failures. Some countries went further, threatening to ban the platform unless it could prove that user data was being handled securely and in compliance with local laws. The company's leadership underwent a dramatic shakeup, with several top executives resigning or being replaced as part of a broader effort to restore public confidence. Meanwhile, cybersecurity researchers continued to analyze the leaked data, uncovering patterns that suggested the breach may have been exploited by multiple groups with different motives. Some hackers appeared to be motivated by profit, selling access to the messages on underground forums, while others seemed driven by ideology, seeking to expose corruption or wrongdoing. The incident also highlighted the growing sophistication of cybercriminals, who are increasingly adept at finding and exploiting even the most obscure vulnerabilities. For victims of the breach, the consequences were deeply personal. Relationships were strained, reputations damaged, and in some cases, lives upended by the sudden loss of privacy. Mental health professionals reported a spike in anxiety and depression among those affected, as people struggled to cope with the knowledge that their secrets were now public. The breach also had a chilling effect on digital communication, with many users turning to encrypted messaging apps or reverting to face-to-face conversations for sensitive matters. Tech companies across the industry pledged to learn from the incident, investing heavily in security research and collaborating more closely with independent experts. Some platforms introduced new features, such as end-to-end encryption by default and self-destructing messages, in an effort to reassure users and prevent future breaches. But skeptics warned that no system is ever truly secure, and that the arms race between hackers and defenders will only intensify as more of our lives move online. The glitch that leaked 1 billion private messages became a defining moment in the history of cybersecurity, a stark reminder of the risks inherent in our digital world. It forced a reckoning not only for the company at the center of the storm, but for an entire industry grappling with the challenge of protecting user privacy at scale. In the end, the incident served as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for change, prompting renewed focus on security, accountability, and the human cost of technological failure. Long after the headlines faded, the lessons of the breach continued to resonate, shaping the way we think about privacy, trust, and the future of digital communication. For those who lived through it, the glitch was more than just a technical error. It was a turning point, a moment when the promise of the digital age collided with its darkest realities. Long after the immediate chaos subsided, the aftershocks of the breach continued to ripple through society, fundamentally altering how individuals and organizations approached digital communication. The breach exposed not only technical vulnerabilities but also deep-seated cultural attitudes toward privacy, trust, and the permanence of online data. People who once casually shared personal anecdotes and sensitive information through digital channels began to second-guess every message they sent, weighing the risks of exposure against the convenience of instant communication. A new wave of digital literacy campaigns emerged, aiming to educate the public on the importance of strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and cautious sharing of personal details. Schools and universities incorporated cyber hygiene into their curricula, teaching students that privacy is not a given, but something to be actively protected. Meanwhile, businesses scrambled to reassure clients and partners that their communications were secure, investing in third-party security audits and overhauling internal protocols. The insurance industry, previously slow to adapt to the realities of cyber risk, began offering specialized policies to cover losses from data breaches and privacy violations. For law enforcement, the breach presented a daunting challenge: how to investigate crimes committed with data stolen in the leak, while respecting the privacy of those whose messages had been exposed. Legal experts debated the implications of using leaked messages as evidence in court, raising questions about consent, authenticity, and the right to be forgotten. Internationally, the incident fueled diplomatic tensions, as countries accused one another of exploiting the breach for intelligence gathering or political advantage. Some governments demanded access to the platform's source code, seeking assurances that similar vulnerabilities did not exist in other widely used applications. Others moved to develop their own national messaging systems, wary of relying on foreign technology for critical communications. In the tech sector, the breach became a rallying cry for a new generation of engineers and entrepreneurs determined to build safer, more resilient systems. Startups specializing in privacy-focused products saw a surge in investment as consumers sought alternatives to mainstream platforms. Open-source projects gained traction, with communities of developers collaborating to create transparent, auditable solutions that could be scrutinized by anyone. The psychological impact of the breach lingered, with many victims reporting persistent feelings of vulnerability and mistrust, even after taking steps to secure their accounts. Therapists and counselors developed new approaches to help clients process the trauma of digital exposure, recognizing that the loss of privacy can be as damaging as any physical violation. Support groups formed online and offline, offering a space for people to share their experiences and strategies for coping with the fallout. Some individuals chose to withdraw from social media and messaging platforms altogether, embracing a form of digital minimalism in an effort to reclaim control over their personal information. Others became vocal advocates for privacy rights, joining grassroots movements that called for greater transparency and accountability from tech companies. The breach also prompted a reevaluation of the role of algorithms in moderating and storing content, with critics arguing that automated systems can never fully anticipate the consequences of a single error. Ethicists weighed in, questioning whether the relentless pursuit of innovation should come at the expense of user safety and dignity. Some called for the creation of independent oversight bodies to monitor the practices of tech giants, ensuring that user interests are not sacrificed for profit or expediency. The conversation extended to the boardrooms of major corporations, where executives faced tough questions about their own data practices and the potential risks lurking in their digital infrastructure. Shareholders demanded greater transparency and accountability, pushing companies to disclose not just breaches, but also near misses and vulnerabilities that could have led to disaster. In response, some organizations adopted a policy of radical transparency, publishing detailed reports on security incidents and inviting independent experts to review their systems. Others took a more cautious approach, quietly strengthening their defenses while avoiding public discussion of potential weaknesses. Across the industry, there was a growing recognition that cybersecurity is not merely a technical challenge, but a matter of organizational culture and leadership. Companies began to prioritize security training for all employees, not just IT staff, recognizing that human error is often the weakest link in the chain. The breach also accelerated the adoption of zero-trust architectures, which assume that no user or device can be trusted by default, regardless of their location or credentials. As organizations re-examined their relationships with third-party vendors, many discovered that their own data security depended on the practices of countless partners and suppliers. This realization led to a wave of contract renegotiations, as companies demanded stronger guarantees and more rigorous audits from those who handled their data. In the legal realm, the breach set new precedents for liability and compensation, with courts grappling with the question of how to quantify the harm caused by the loss of privacy. Some judges awarded substantial damages to victims, citing the emotional distress and reputational harm caused by the exposure of sensitive messages. Others took a more conservative approach, emphasizing the difficulty of proving concrete losses in cases where the consequences of the breach were diffuse and long-term. The incident also sparked a lively debate about the ethics of journalism, as reporters wrestled with the question of whether to publish information obtained from the leak. Some outlets chose to redact identifying details, focusing on systemic issues rather than individual scandals, while others published unfiltered excerpts that fueled public outrage. The broader public, meanwhile, became more skeptical of the media, questioning the motives and methods of those who profited from the dissemination of stolen data. The breach's legacy extended into the realm of art and culture, inspiring novels, films, and documentaries that explored the human cost of digital exposure. Artists used the incident as a lens through which to examine themes of trust, betrayal, and the blurred boundaries between public and private life. In academic circles, researchers studied the breach as a case study in risk management, software engineering, and the sociology of technology. Their findings informed new guidelines for secure software development, emphasizing the importance of thorough testing, peer review, and a culture of continuous improvement. As the years passed, the breach faded from the headlines but remained a touchstone for discussions about the future of technology and society. It served as a reminder that the conveniences of the digital age come with profound risks, and that the quest for security is an ongoing, collective effort. The incident prompted a new generation to question the wisdom of entrusting so much of their lives to unseen algorithms and distant servers. For some, the breach was a call to action, a reason to demand better from the companies and institutions that shape our digital world. For others, it was a cautionary tale, a warning that even the most sophisticated systems are only as strong as their weakest link. And so, the story of the glitch that leaked 1 billion private messages endures, shaping the choices we make and the technologies we build in the years to come. And as new technologies emerge and the stakes of digital privacy grow ever higher, the world will remember the day a single glitch exposed 1 billion secrets to the world. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more stories they don't want you to know.